Hi, and welcome to a new series we are kicking off here at Keep Indiana Learning. I am Marty Hoofer, the Digital Content Manager for Keep Indiana Learning, and I am very excited about this series because it impacts every teacher, K to 12, every content area. So this is great content that I am so excited to bring to you. This series is called Rethinking the Classroom in Our AI Era. And so a subtle, maybe not so subtle, nod to Taylor Swift there, and then AI, it's everywhere. So it's in our classrooms too. So we need to start making adjustments. So I'm excited to have with us one of our innovation coaches today. So John, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and take it away?
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So my name is John Wells, and I am a 33-year classroom veteran, and I am one of the innovation coaches here at Keep Indiana Learning. And one of my main focuses is really looking at AI and, the impact it's having on the classroom. And I know there's like a ton of positives that we can get out of it, but right now we're kind of working through some of the negatives in it. And so one of the big things that I wanted to think about and talk about and bring in some thought partners to work through some of these things was just really about it's how can we rethink our classroom? Like, it's not so much like, oh, what are we going to do to keep AI out of the room, right? Like, we have to accept the fact that it's here. So what do we need to do? What can we do to rethink our classroom, our assignments, our processes, so that we can make it more effective and more useful? And I could think of no better thought partner to use today than my good friend, Victoria. Victoria, could you introduce yourself, please?
That's quite the introduction. I'm not sure I can live up to the hype, but I will do my best. I am Victoria Bauer. I have been a teacher for 8 years. I'm on year 9, and I recently transitioned. I've taught everything from high school English to remedial English to honors to now I'm currently teaching college and career courses, health, and Project Lead the Way. So I have done a plethora of different things, and I've learned a lot from Mr. Wells over here. So I'm just excited to talk about it because it is such a timely issue and something that I think we all have a lot to learn from, and we all kind of need to be on a similar page on where we go from here. So I'm excited to talk with you today.
Well, and I'm excited because I think that one of the best things that we can do is really be connecting, and it's really helpful to have somebody to think this through with and say, like, hey, here's what we used to do. What can I do to really change that, right? And I know that you have done a lot with kind of being different and unique and bringing, your classes into, to be a lot more fun and a lot more innovative and stuff. And so I really feel like you're going to be really helpful. You ready to get started here?
Let's do this. Are they ready for it, though, is the real question.
Yes, we are ready for it. Hey, let's take a look at this one. This is, the idea is taking a prompt, something that we might normally do, something that we might, on a regular basis, how might we rethink this? So let's just take a second. If you look at this, what kinds of things do you think you're wanting your students to be able to do if you had this kind of prompt? What are you asking the students to be able to answer?
So we're looking at the play itself, and it has been a minute since I've looked at the Crucible, I have to admit here. But we're looking about character and changes, and we're looking into character. I'm guessing a little bit of character development is kind of the area we're looking at here.
Yeah, definitely so. And really, we're also looking at kind of that definition piece here, right? Like, what is the Crucible? Like what is a Crucible? And then how do we see it in the play itself? So how easy do you think this would be to AI?
Oh, considering what AI is able to do, I would say it would be pretty easy to AI, but yeah.
So I did take this prompt and I did run it through ChatGPT, and let me go ahead and pull up what it gave me here. And if we can just kind of slip through this a little quickly here. Let's take a look at what AI gave us, and then can we just take a quick second to think about, like, what did it do well and what did it not do well, do you think? Like, for me, I love the fact that it started with that definition piece here. It's both a container for purifying and for a metaphor for severe trials. I think that's exactly something that we'd be talking about in class. Would you not agree?
Oh, I 100% agree. I think it's always a good thing to start with kind of more broad and then narrow down as we go. So I think that's an interesting way to begin.
If a student were to hand you this paper, though, what is something that you would probably like right off the bat be like concerned with?
Well, right off the bat, it would be pretty evident that it's AI just because of the way it's structured. Also, too, I'm now teaching middle schoolers, and my middle schoolers would not know what collective morality or the idea of purifying metals is something my PLTW kids might know, but probably not yet.
Yeah, I would agree that I think it's pretty obvious the language is above a lot of our students. Now, again, I think a savvy student might be able to work around that a little bit, right? When I ran this through, here's the part that jumped out to me is that it went from, I think it started off right, like here's the definition, and then here's the trial that it got. But then it really, down here, it jumps into this whole idea of societal and structural norms. And I think it really goes off in a different direction that I think is pretty obvious that either the student got off track or it had a lot of help, right?
Yeah.
So let's go back to the original prompt here. And Victoria, no, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. You
What
cut
were you
out for a
gonna say?
second. No, you cut out for a second. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's okay. Okay. So if we look at the original prompt, what is something you think we could do to tweak this to make it a little less likely that a student could AI it, or that would force them to really rethink that process?
I mean, I would tie it more specifically. I would require, because I'm assuming that you would give this out after you'd gone through in-depth analysis and looking at different facets of the story itself and gone through different readings of the play. So I would tie it more closely to the book itself and ask for a little bit more in-depth analysis piece, which I know AI can do, but I feel like it struggles a bit more when you're asking it to be something that you've talked about in a classroom.
So would we be looking at one specific element, or is there something like, do we want to narrow it down into a particular piece, or?
I mean, I think narrowing it down would be helpful.
Okay. What about if one of the things I think would be really quick here is, using the definition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. I think that, kind of what you're saying is let's use a very specific piece.
Right.
Right. So now what do you think?
Absolutely.
Where does this change it, or how does this change the prompt?
Well, it changes the prompt in that it brings it back to the class itself. And it becomes something of like, oh, you actually have to, and that's a topic for another day, but the idea of like, it's not something that they can just Google online. It's something that they had to be in person for, which I feel like is something that a lot of our kids are misinterpreting these days.
Yes. And I think also too, I mean, let's be fair, they could still take this and drop it into ChatGPT. You're going to get an answer, but it's going to be obvious if they understood what you talked about, or in class, or if they weren't there. All right. Okay, so let's change it a little bit more then. Let's change it a little bit more. Could we make this more personal?
Personal in regard to, like, you're wanting to make it more like a specific character personal, or personal to like a personal connection from the reader to the.
Yeah, personal connection.
I'm so sorry. You
what can
cut
we do
out again? It could be my Wi-Fi.
Oh. So I was asking, is there a way that we can make it a little bit more personal, or make the student bring in something from their own experience?
Oh, absolutely. I think anytime we can allow a student to jump into those higher level of thinking. And anytime you can apply yourself, it shows deeper understanding of the text of a whole, as well as being able to connect to a personal story within your life, or even show symbolism within your life and how it connects to the story. I think that would be a really interesting concept, and something that would also be hard for AI to duplicate without it being very impersonal.
Okay. And I know I know we're kind of roughing this out a little bit, but
I must say you're doing a great job typing. I feel like when I'm typing, when someone's watching me, I have about 15 typos every word.
Yeah, that happens. So something like that, maybe? And again, I know we're probably kind of rough on the writing there.
Yeah, I think.
Now, this obviously brings in some personal experience. Maybe a little, got to be a little careful with some of this, right? So we probably would really need to kind of build some guardrails in this, right? Like we're not looking for someone's PTSD moment.
Right. Maybe even set some parameters, or outline in class different connections that they could make.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I know that Crucible, like, the idea is this, like, major life-shifting event, but I mean, even like your first day of freshman year, right? Or your first day of sixth grade when you enter a new building or something, right? Those are crucibles in the same way, just on a different scale. And we could probably build those in. Okay. Do you think that this still gets to the original point, though?
I think it does. I think it does in a certain way. I think it strays a bit. It almost, I worry that it might become too much, like you said, of a almost a sob story memoir instead of a connection to the actual text itself.
Okay. So we need to add something.
More of a firm connection.
So how about instead of what change, how does that compare?
Yes.
Yeah. So now we don't have to worry so much about that person's experience, like getting into those personal issues, right? But we're bringing it back to John Proctor. And so do you think here then we're getting more of the, like, does the student still show mastery of the concept of the text? I guess that's where I really want to get to.
I think if they are able to discuss how a crucible is an extreme test and how it's something that they've experienced, and relate that to John Proctor and the trials and tribulations he goes through, I think if they're able to look at those both on the same scale and compare the two, I feel like that would definitely show mastery and knowledge of the character of John Proctor, as well as the definition of a crucible as well.
Awesome. And again, I think too, when we talk about, we're asking students to share. We do obviously have to be a little bit careful. I mean, but this could be an option right now. This could be, maybe I give my students 2 or 3 options, right? And this could be one of them they could use. So more choice, right?
Okay. I've always loved student choice and giving different options to go by.
Excellent. I want to change it up one more time if I can. Okay. If we start with the same piece here, how about
Ooh.
You know where I'm going.
I do. I really like that.
Okay. Now, does this then still show that same level of mastery? Do we need to finesse this a little bit more?
I think I would still like to give that comparison piece in there where they're still either comparing back to the original text or showing maybe a certain scene or a certain act in the play in which they are modernizing. Because I do think it's important for them to pull from the actual text itself, or to showcase that they're not just saying, okay, here's a SparkNotes summary and I'm rewriting it in modern day English.
Maybe something like this, use a specific instance. So now they have to be able to say, so now we're saying like they understand what a crucible is, that this was a pivotal moment in John Proctor's, arc, right?
Right.
And we're using it to compare to something else. We're applying that to a different situation.
Right.
Maybe even bring in, compare, right? What? Or an appropriate choice. Let's use appropriate choice, right?
Yeah.
How's that? So now we're bringing in that analysis piece as well.
Yeah, we're definitely reaching into those higher level thinking questions, which I think is always a good thing for us to accomplish.
Do we think AI could do this then? Or?
I don't know. I think it would be interesting to see what they came up with.
Yeah. And again, maybe we give them the specific example, right? Like you could always give them the specific example. I think that AI, you give AI something, it's going to produce an answer no matter what, right? It's going to give you something. But, I think this really, if a student has maybe more interest in the assignment, do you think that lessens maybe a little bit the desire to, or the temptation to AI something?
Oh, absolutely. I've always felt like when kids are motivated and they care about what they're doing, they will throw themselves into assignments rather than shying away. And I feel like a lot of kids, and I'm not stereotyping at all here, but a lot of students from my experience, the ones that are prone to AI are the ones who are just trying to get it done and hit that deadline. So I feel like if we can get kids excited and wanting to be like, oh, how can I make this classic tale a more modern version and get them to be invested in it, I think we would have a lot less trouble with AI for sure.
And that's something we always hear in a lot of those texts, like, what does this matter? This thing's so old. What does it mean to me, right? Like it gives them that chance to connect and make a better connection to the text.
Yes.
Okay, so let's take a couple of takeaways here. So if we were thinking about like, hey, I've got this thing, I've got an assignment that I need to do, but I want to make it less likely that somebody goes in and AIs it. So we want to make it personal, right? Or we want to make it application based, right? Like you have to take something you learned here and apply it over here.
Yes.
Awesome.
To where it's less of a plug and chug formula.
Excellent. I have to say that, this takes a lot more effort, right? This does take a lot more effort, but I think in the end, I believe you'd agree with me that probably you get a better product in the end as well.
Absolutely. You get a better product. You probably have better student engagement. Not only that, but you could have, that modernize the text depending on how much time you had in the school year and your backwards curriculum planning. But you could even have kids act out a portion of their modernized scene, or even create a visual representation, a product of some sort. It could be a very interesting assignment that you could spend quite a bit of time on, letting the kids explore that creativity side, which I feel like anytime you have a chance to do that, I love bringing creativity into my classroom. So that's something that if you're interested, I think that'd be cool.
Yeah. And again, alternate forms of assessment as well too. Like, it doesn't always have to be something written, right?
Right.
Awesome. Hey, Victoria, I appreciate you taking some time to talk with me and to help me kind of think through this a little bit. I really appreciate your input. And I can't wait to see what you do with it. I can't wait to try some of these things out myself.
Sounds great. It was nice talking to you today, and this is a conversation that definitely will not be over anytime soon, but something that we can all strive to do better with.
Awesome. And I hope that you all join us again. We're going to be talking about some other different curriculum areas and doing some of this in some of those other curriculum areas to see how maybe you have to rethink your classroom in that AI era. Thanks for joining us today. See you soon.